Okay.
I'd like to introduce you to Beverlee
Kyffin.
Right? Her faculty mentor in the early childhood program is unable to be here, so it's my pleasure to introduce her. I've had a chance to talk to her a little bit about her project, which is effects of screen time on young children. I'm sure you will enjoy this. Thank you.
Did that? Okay, which one did I push? The top one? Okay.
There you go.
My name is Beverlee, and I have done some research on how screen time affects young children. When I talk about screen time, we'll talk about computers, TVs, video games, cell phones, and iPads. If you guys just take a look around, they're everywhere. We all have computers. If you look in their elementary schools, these kids now have miniature computers, they have iPads, they're smart boards. The screens are everywhere. You go to the grocery store, and this is a new thing that they're thinking about doing, is putting screens even on shopping carts. But I was standing in line at Walmart today, and there was a television I looked at as I was checking out my groceries. McDonald's has televisions in it now. Our kids are surrounded by screens everywhere they look. And here are some of the facts, the national facts. On average, a child watches 3 to 5 hours of TV per day. 65% of children ages 4 to 11 have more than 2 hours of screen time per day. 74% of children under 2 watch TV. 30% of children 0 to 3 have TVs in their bedrooms. 43% of children from age 4 to 6 have TVs in their bedrooms. TVs, there's a direct correlation between TVs in bedrooms and the amount of TV children watch. In homes where they have lots of TVs, they call them heavy television homes, children, they're seeing a link between the age at which children read. And in children are not read to or don't have books to explore on their own, the age in which they read starts to increase. They become 6, 7, 8, 9 instead of in kindergarten. So I went and did some local research at the school which my children attend and at which I teach. And I found that 80% of the children 8 years old and younger watch at least 1 hour of TV per day. 23% spend more than 1 hour per day on screens of some sorts, iPads, telephones, and those kind of things. 100% of the children that I polled watched TV under the age of 3. I didn't find any child under the age of 3 that had not watched TV. 20% of the children from 0 to 3 had TVs in their bedrooms. And from the age 4 to 8, 27% of them had TVs in their bedrooms. And again, on the polls, there was a direct link from kids who had TVs in their bedrooms on the increase on how much time they spend watching TVs. And the same with computers. If they have a computer in their room, they spend way more time gaming. Some of the negative effects that we see is when children play games and surf the net and watch TV, they have a tendency to lose their creativity. And screens affect brain development, which then affects their academic development. And screen time also, screen time also takes away from kids exploring books and reading books and spending time with their parents. And when this happens, like I said, back to the reading, it messes up when they learn to read. And reading is such a fundamental part of your education. There's a new term out, and they call it flickering mind. And that's because when kids watch TV, the pictures flash, and when they watch games, the pictures flash. And so this messes up their ability to have attention spans, their listening skills, their reasoning skills, and their empathy skills when they watch a lot of TV. Okay. TV increases many risks. We see that the more violence children find in games and see on TV, it increases their willingness to fight, their dishonesty, and their distrust. It increases depression. There's an increase in actual criminal behavior, precocious sexuality, and there is a huge link to obesity. I read about 2 different studies. One of them was done in the American Journal of Health, and they took 2 groups of people. One, they limited their screen times to an hour per day. The other one, they could watch as much TV as they wished. And the people who watch less TV averaged 880 more steps per day, 6,158 more steps per week, 320,000 more steps per year. That is a lot of activity that you're missing out on when you are watching TV. And if we're not active, your chances for obesity is going to go up. The second study was done by Memphis State University, and it measured children's metabolic rates, which is linked to how many calories you burn. And they found that when children watch TV, their metabolic rate drops to the same level as a normal child who is sleeping or resting. A child whose metabolic rate is just reading a book or sitting talking to their parent is actually higher than the child watching TV. So this just adds more direct correlations to why our children are getting obese if they're watching TV. And drugs and alcohol increase also. Computers, they're a part of everyday life, and we all use them, we all need them. But some of the health problems that come along with that is eye strain, repetitive stress injuries, obesity, possible emotional intelligence damage, and it takes away from play, physical activity, and bonding with adults when kids just spend all their time on TVs and using computers. Now, computers are one of those things that can really, really help us. If we didn't have computers, all these presentations today would look completely different. So, computers that allow creativity, they help you with your self-esteem, your intelligence, and your explorations. We all do research on them. They're a great tool. We just need to teach kids when to use them and how to use them. So I have some tips for parents. When you are picking out games for your children, or even your nieces and nephews, find software that has simple directions so that they're not hard for children to understand. They allow for independent exploration. It's not telling the children exactly what to do, but let them explore the game on their own. And opportunities for problem solving to take place during the game. And then for internet, we need to have lots of internet safety, especially for young children. Keep your computers in a centralized place in your home, where you as a parent or guardian can look and see what your child's doing on that computer. Stay involved with what they're looking at, where they're going. Monitor the websites. If your children are on Facebook, if they're on MySpace, see what they're posting, see where they're going, see who they're talking to, because there's a lot of not nice people out there in that world that can prey on our children. And then use filtering hardware. That way, if your child happens to get on there and you're not watching, they can't get somewhere that you don't want them to be, or if they type in something and it takes them somewhere that they didn't really mean to go, it'll stop it before they see something that you don't want them to. And pay attention to the food you eat while you're at the computer. I didn't really think about this until I did all this research, but the night I did it, I looked down, I had a bowl of almonds when I started. They were gone when I got done. Because you don't think about it. You eat, you type, you eat, you type. So just pay attention to what you do and place some limits on your time. Set a timer. Kids understand timers, and say 30 minutes and they're done. There's some recommendations I have for parents and for teachers. Children under 2 should not watch TV. This is when their brain is developing the most. And this is when we can really mess it up with the flashing. Limit TV time for all other children. Even us adults need to limit our TV time. Use computers under adult supervision. Help those kiddos. They love using them. My children love using them. But be there and help them do it so that they don't get in trouble. Limit your computer time just like you limit their television time. Limit their iPad time. Limit their phone time. Because they're everywhere. You get in the car, you hand your kid the phone, and before you know it, you're an hour down the road, and they've played on that phone for a whole hour. Choose your games carefully. They're all rated. When you go to buy games for the Wiis and the Nintendos, they all have those little T's and E's and Y's and all that on them. Pay attention. They're there to help you guys with your kids. And these are my resources where I found all my research. there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
For the screens, were the like Leap Star little kind of
Mhm.
things included?
Yes.
For screens?
Yes. In the stuff I did for the national stuff, I'm sure it does because it considers all screen time. And even for the stuff I did locally, I work out at Sargent School, and that's where my research came from. And we included those for the younger kids too. And lots of kids have them because they're educational games, but just watch and limit the time they use them. Yes, ma'am?
I'm curious. You said that kids who are reading had higher metabolic rates than kids who were doing something else.
Yes.
Do you think it'd be different if they were reading on a Kindle versus a book? Because a Kindle is still technically screen time.
You know, I'm not for sure. I mean, they're reading, and reading's good for them.
But then there's still the issues with the screen time. Just I'm wondering
Yes.
if any of the research you read has
You
gone
know,
to technology. Yet.
I didn't, and it is, and my research is probably about 5 to 10 years old because of the time frames. You know, I did look at some newer stuff, but none of them had addressed the Kindles and the Nooks and all of that yet. And that's just, screens are there. They're everywhere. And we are just going to have to figure out how to make it work for everybody and how we can get our children where they don't use too much screen time, but yet be able to use technology, because technology is a wonderful thing.
Good answer, thank you.
Yes, ma'am?
I think that their increased like interest in reading has to do with what they're watching when they're younger.
You know, I didn't do any research, but personally, yes, I do. From watching the kids I see grow up and the kids I've been around, is I really think it does. When it's all violence and kids, I work a lot with kids aged 3 to 5 or 1 to 5, and they reenact what they see on TV. They see superheroes, they're superheroes at school. They see kids fighting with guns, they come to school and fight with guns. So what they're seeing on TV, they role play in life. And so I really think it does have a huge effect. Yes, ma'am?
I think you said earlier in your presentation that the empathy children can feel for others is
Yes.
also affected. Could
It-
you talk more about that?
Well, if a child's just watching TV and they're watching people be mean to one another, they're not going to show the empathy. When a child falls down and gets hurt, they're going to laugh at them because if that's what they're seeing on TV, instead of going over and helping them up and patting them on the back. They really do. They reenact what they see at home, even as parents. If you show empathy to one another, they're going to show empathy to theirs. So what they see is huge. Now, if they watch wholesome shows, maybe they'll see empathy and things like that, and maybe they'll show that. But play and play. Children learn through play. If they're not playing, they're not going to get the empathy. They're not going to learn all the different things they learn through play. Play is a huge part in a child's growing up, and they need to be able to play.
So can I ask a part 2 before we go?
Yeah.
on? So if parents or teachers really carefully select programs in which people are kind to each other, value difference, diversity, etc., do you think that there will be a positive impact on empathetic responses?
There could be, especially when they get a little older. I think that the more role models and the more positive things they see, the better they will be.
But you don't think it's the same as actual play?
I don't. I really don't. I think play is where they learn, and acting it out amongst themselves. Kids, they do, and when that's how they problem solve, that's where they learn all of those things, is through play with their peers. Yes, ma'am?
You mentioned the flickering mind
Yes.
from the screen time. Does that have anything to do with attention deficit disorder or?
You know, in my research, I didn't see any links, but I personally think it might, because kids, when your mind flickers, even us adults will find ourselves, attention sometimes is hard to hold. And when you're watching TV, everything flicks at you and your mind gets to moving that fast. So when you sit down to read, your mind's still wanting to flicker and jump. And attention, it leads to not being able to concentrate. So it may. But I didn't have any research that shows that. Yes, ma'am?
In the literature, did you find differences across demographics of screen exposure due to SES or culture, region?
You know, I didn't, but I didn't look for it either. I just did national, straight across the board. Yes, ma'am?
How about programs like like Baby Einstein and Your Baby Can Read that are designed for children under 2?
NAYCE, which is a huge contributor to early childhood education, has a big movement right now to get Baby Einstein taken completely off the market, because that is encouraging children under the age of 2 to watch TV. And there is so much research that shows that under 2, when their brains are developing, that's the last thing you want them to do is watch TV. Let me see here. I have the name of the company. The Kaiser Foundation. They are one of the big movements to not have children under the age of 2. And if you go to the NAYCE website, you can go around in there and find all their research that shows why they want Baby Einstein pulled off the market. And they're the big push to get it. And I have an early childhood classroom, and we start at 1 to 3, and we watch absolutely no TV. And I don't promote parents to let their children watch Baby Einstein. I just think that play is so much better, and they can learn everything that they're finding in Baby Einstein through play. They get their cognitive skills, they'll get gross motor skills and fine motor skills all through play. And play, make-believe play, they get their reading skills, their beginning of stories, their middle of stories, their end of stories. They learn to problem solve, all of the things Baby Einstein is showing. Yes?
When you were looking at the TV, because you gave some positive tips on how to use computers.
Right.
Did you run across anything on how to use TV in a good way, such as having them watch Dora, which is an interactive show,
Right.
versus something to just watch it? Did you run across anything
I
like that?
didn't. There was a lot more on how to make iPads and computers to be more productive and more positive. There was very little on how to make a TV positive.
So is there a movement, since TV is such a central part of our culture, is there a movement to push for programs that are more?
I didn't see one. NAYCE might be, but they're so against TV for young children that most of the things I looked at said no. Yes, ma'am?
Can I ask, what were the kids you're talking about, what was the age range you're focusing on?
When I did my local poll, I did children that were, I had some that were, I think the youngest was 12 months, clear to the age 8, through the 2nd grade at Sargent. I did all the kids that went to the Sargent preschool, and then through the 2nd grade I sent home polls from. So that's where I came up with some of my local stuff. Yes, sir?
Did you find anything that differentiated between programs that you put a DVD on at home that has no commercial interruption? Did you find any differentiation between those two?
I didn't. But I know that I watched a show last night, and it was at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, which is time for children to be watching shows, and it was talking about condoms. And I don't want my 8-year-old to know that. And it was Channel 9, which is NBC. So, yes, ma'am?
So you feel, or your study shows that, like even Dora Explorer, like he mentions, and learning your ABCs and everything like that is
Under the age of 2, it's not. In small, if you do it in small amounts of time, it won't hurt. Just like anything, limit everything you do. You don't want to eat a ton. You don't, you know. But under the age of 2, TV is just plain bad for kids. Computers, iPads, iPods, their little brains are just not ready for that yet. Yes?
So you, like, what it sounds like is like you're talking about like when kids are just sitting idle, but what about like the movie, there's We Fit, and then there's Just Dance. Let me tell you, you gotta work out from We
My daughter,
Dance. And like, how is that?
you know, I didn't find any exact research, but it's still screen time. Kids are still standing in front of that TV. It's still flashing at them. It's still hard on their brain, the flashing of all the different things. And yes, We Dance, the kids dance thing, is a workout. My daughter is like, please, please, we limit television in my home a great deal. And my kids earn their computer time, they earn their Wii time, and all of that. We don't have a Nintendo, we have a Wii because I decided if all things, at least they were moving a little. But I still limit it. And you can see some kids, if you talk, you can watch patterns where, especially right before bedtime, it's stimulating. All of it is very stimulating to their brain, and their brain has got to slow down and shut off so they can go to bed and rest. So just the more you can limit it, the better it is. You can't cut it out completely, I don't think, for older children because it's such a part of life. But kids under 2, just try hard not to let them have it. Yes?
If we limit a child's TV time, do you think it will affect the way they interact with other children?
In young kids, no. Kids that are under 2, they don't talk about what they see on TV. They play with each other. Even my 3 and 4-year-olds, very seldom do they talk about what they see on TV. They play with each other. Now, when you get up into 2nd and 3rd grade, yeah, they're going to want to talk about what they saw on TV last night. But just limit it. Limit it. Give them 20 minutes. And then they can pick their one show they want to watch that night so they can be like their friends.